Hi, and welcome to TV My Husband Hates. I'm Cat Sims.
And I'm Reagan Kempton.
And we are reality TV addicts.
Addicts, aficionados.
Ooh, I like that. Experts.
Experts.
Basically, we know our shit when it comes to reality TV.
100%.
Hey everyone, and welcome to our latest Minisode, where we are going to be doing a deep dive into the Real Housewives of New York reunion. How are you doing, Reagan?
I'm good. I was really looking forward to this reunion, and I felt it was kind of meh.
I know. I mean, listen, the one good thing, which I liked, was that they were all in the same cavernous fucking warehouse room.
Absolutely. It was our first kind of in-person since quarantine reunion. But I don't understand why some of these ladies just couldn't get their shit together and, like, remember the rules. They're not that fucking hard.
I mean, it was just mind-boggling to me that, like, they're up touching each other. Like, here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
If there aren't a million cameras on you and you want to do, you know, an elbow fist pump or you want to run around without your mask on, I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
But when there are a million cameras on you, you've been clearly told that you cannot get up and touch and get close to each other. Even Andy at the end with the selfie, Leah and fucking Dorinda have practically got their arms around each other.
I know. And I mean, I don't know how it is, and this is like the fucking, like, everybody play by the rules. Wear your fucking mask and don't touch each other. That's all anybody is asking you to do. They're not asking you to get weird fucking vaccines that haven't been tested. They're not asking you to do anything strange. They're just asking you to wear a fucking mask. So put the goddamn mask on and stop touching each other. Done.
I honestly don't know whether it's because I'm obviously an extrovert, but I'm very much an introvert extrovert. You know, like, actually, if somebody says to me, you can't really leave your house or hang out with anybody, obviously your kids must still go to school. Obviously,
right.
that.
100%.
I'd be like, I'm like okay with that. Like, I don't mind it when people tell me I have to be. We're under curfew now, so you have to be, like, all pubs and restaurants have to be shut by 10.
Yeah.
People should be home. That's great. If I'm out after 10, I start to get anxiety anyway, so this is fine. It doesn't stop me doing it, but it's not great for my soul. But with these women, it's like, just, they don't care.
No, and I honestly, Ramona's the worst, in my opinion. She's the absolute fucking worst at all of it, and I feel like it's because of her political leanings, but
she's a fucking Karen. She's a Karen. Ramona is like the mold from which all the other Karens were cut.
Yeah,
like
100%.
She cares only about herself. She cares only about looking after herself, her own experience. And Leah, I'm so pleased that Andy brought this Instagram kind of situation up, because Leah was really, and rightly so, fucked off with the way she said other castmates were handling it, but she meant Ramona. Because Ramona showed complete disregard for the rules and a complete lack of empathy for the crisis that was happening and the people that were being affected by it.
100%. And as a New Yorker, she should be fucking embarrassed. Like, New York was hit so hard and it was so horrendous. And the whole time she was just fucking parading around in her bathing suit in fucking Florida, where they had no rules. Like, Florida was the worst. I mean, you and I know, because I had to wait until, like, the last minute to cancel our trip that we were so fucking excited about, which again was fine. But Florida didn't get their shit together so that everybody could cancel when everybody knew what was going on. And so Florida had these really fucked up rules, and Ramona just didn't give two shits.
No, and it makes me mad, because not everybody has the ability to jump on a fucking plane and go and hang out in Florida, escape New York and hang out in Florida and head over to the tennis club in Boca Raton or whatever it was, because it was open and it was fine. It's like, dude, you know what was going on. You know what was going on. And even if the rules in Florida were more lax, you're still a New Yorker. You've got a fucking platform, and you had a responsibility to do better. And all she did was do exactly what the fuck she wanted to do.
Well, and all she had to do was keep her ass off of social media as well. Like, let's be real. Like, there were no cameras following her around in Florida. She could have just done it and been, kept it on the down low, but oh no.
I mean,
she had to flaunt it.
You know what? I'm going to say it. This is Ramona's problem, and it's always her problem. She's just not very smart. Like, she's actually a little bit stupid. And I'm going to say it. I don't care if I get blowback for it. I mean, the woman is stupid, and she doesn't have any real book smarts or street smarts, and she's completely narcissistic. So it's a terrible mix. But you're absolutely right. If she wanted to fucking flout the rules, do you know what? Nothing is stopping you. We can't stop you. But why would you put it all over social media?
You're a fucking idiot.
Because she thinks that people actually are impressed by the life that she leads. And even if that's true when COVID isn't running rampage across the globe, it's certainly not true when it is. And she just is so fucking stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately, at least here, like wearing a mask has become a political issue because the person leading our country has fucked it all up so many different ways. But Ramona is very vocal about being a Trump supporter, and I feel like that is why she is flouting the rules. Like, they just don't believe in science, apparently, and people who know this shit, and it's I think that's why she was on social media. Like, I think in some ways it was like a political statement that she was fine and she could still live her life this way. And
I think this is a problem with Trump. I think he has validated so many ultra-conservative, very self-centered views that now people for the first time are feeling the sense of entitlement that they can do and say exactly as they want. And I'm absolutely not America bashing at all, but there's always been built on this sense of individualism, right? That
totally.
If you want something, you can go and get it. And I think that is great in a lot of ways, but I also think it means that it's sometimes hard to like foster this sense of community and this sense of community responsibility. And I think that's what we're seeing with people like Ramona. She just doesn't give a shit. She cares about herself. She cares about furthering herself, about making sure she gets everything and anything that she feels she needs and desires. But there's very little care for a greater community.
Yeah, it's super. I mean, not to get totally off, the topic of the reunion, but it's something that's really fascinating to me about the U.S. and like the COVID response, because it all comes from the top. So if you have somebody telling you shit doesn't matter, then a lot of people are going to believe that. But it's also been left up to the states. So like my governor is a Democrat, and it took some like arm twisting to get him to take a lot of this shit seriously. But once he did, like, we've got a mandatory mask law. Like, my kids wear masks at school all day. Like, it's just the way it goes. You have to wear it when you go out in public. Bars and everything, our last call is not 2 a.m. anymore. It's 11 p.m. And it's been that way for a long time, and we've seen a lot of cases decrease in my state. But my mom lives in a different state, and they've never even had lockdown because they've got like a Republican governor who is very much like, well, it's not that big of a deal. And they're like, she lives in a tiny state, and they're like number 3 in the U.S. for COVID cases still right now. And it's super fucked up. And anyways, I'll get off my little soapbox, but I just like, it's a problem.
It is a problem. And I think Ramona is a perfect representation of that fucking problem. And I was with Leah, and you could see Leah only got up like really rattled twice. And this was one of them. And the other was when she was talking about having to speak to her daughter about her mental health because of what Ramona said about that, which we'll come to. But like, that when Leah is rattled about something,
it's a big
really
deal.
Gets angry, it's a big deal. And I think it was a big deal. And, and I think everybody felt the same way as Leah, but I think this is one of the reasons why we love Leah is she's the one that came out and said it.
Well, she's very real. Like, I think she definitely speaks to more of what I guess I envision kind of modern day women are. And I feel like that's why we have seen so many cash shakeups across the board. But I feel like New York really needs to have one. I mean, and I think especially with Ramona, I like Sonia and Luann. I think they can stay on because I think they evolve and they grow. Whereas I feel this is the same Ramona we've seen ever since her split from Mario and even before. Like, Ramona has not changed. She has just been static and has shown no growth. And I don't need to watch that all the time.
No, I mean, I think even more than that. It's not that she hasn't shown any growth. I feel like she's doubled down. Like, she's going deeper into this kind of really obnoxious sense of self. And it's getting uncomfortable and unpleasant to watch. And frankly, I think that has to be and it's not because I'm liberal and left wing, because I'm here for people. You know, Sonia's right wing.
Totally.
I think she might even vote for Trump too. But the problem with Ramona is that she's kind of similar to Trump in that just her existence and her approach is continuing to validate these rules and validate this kind of behavior. And it's dangerous, and there's a question about whether it's responsible to have somebody like that on the show with that platform. And I don't know if she's going to stay, but I feel like she might not. I feel like it's possible she might not be back.
I feel if it's up to her, she will stay.
Oh, yeah.
So if it's up to Bravo, maybe not, but if it's up to her, she'll be there.
I feel like you'd have to take those cameras out of her cold, dead hands.
Oh, God, yes.
But Leah is here, and Leah has, as it turns out, proven to be a super popular addition to the show, which makes me think it's not just me, because I'm liberal and left wing, and as my dad would say, darling, would you describe yourself as woke? It's not just that. It's because she's just a thoroughly decent human being. And I love that overall the reception has been positive.
No, I totally agree. And I mean, I think even just watching how the other housewives have warmed to her has been, she's been accepted most easily, as a housewife on her first season. And I think it's because she's a dynamic, real person. Like, she doesn't have a shtick. Like, she's just who she is.
Well, and I think there is a point where Ramona's sister tells her that she's dragging the rest of them down, and she turns around and she's like, I elevate this shit, bitch. And actually, I think she really, really does. And I think she's a big part of why Luann in the second half of this season has turned out to be far less of a dick than she started as. And I think it's because they share a similar experience in terms of things like recovery and programs and things like that. And I think it's given Luann the confidence to enact all of that within this group of women. And I don't know if she would have done if Leah hadn't been there and made space for that.
Yeah, no, I think you make an excellent point, because you're absolutely right. At the beginning of the season, we see Luann really slipping, starting to drink a lot and being a real dick. And I feel like you're absolutely right that Leah kind of, just by being there, kind of shows her she doesn't have to be like the old school housewives. She can be her new self, and that will be fine. And I mean, obviously, I think all the ladies said that after watching this season, they've all had to modify their drinking behavior because it was super out of hand.
Dorinda, who still is really pretty fucking defensive about the whole thing.
Yeah, I wish she could just shut up and listen sometimes. I mean, not to Ramona. I'm totally fine with her yelling at Ramona.
Yeah.
I don't care about that. But I feel like with all the other women truly have her best interests at heart. And I know Dorinda apologizes to Luann towards the very end, for the shit that she said, but still refuses to kind of acknowledge that. I don't know.
No, you're right. She does. She refuses to do it. And I mean, at the end, we see her a little bit more open. We'll come to that. But when they're talking about the drinking, Luann says that she's reevaluated it. Sonia does. Obviously, Ramona only drinks water when she goes out, which is why she's so thin.
Obviously, because she's super fit.
Yeah, and Leah, as we know, obviously has too. But yeah, I do think that Leah was Luann's saving grace in this season, and we've got, compare it to Dorinda, who's basically encouraging her to get back on the booze,
right?
Versus Leah, who's like, it's all right not to, and I'm going to come out and say that I'm not going to drink, and these women are going to be okay with it. And I think Luann has taken from that and allowed her to be a little bit more secure in her own decisions as well. And I have to say, I'm down with Luann at the moment, and fuck me, I hated her at first.
Me too. I love it when she is like the voice of reason, because actually she talks a lot of fucking sense.
Yeah. And I think her experience and her processes through recovery have really helped her to see what's real and what is a load of bullshit. And the things, do you know what I mean? And I think that's really helped her to be more confident in herself, rather than feeling she has to be the life and soul of the party and follow everybody. And also, you know, as much as it's fun to watch, it's it feels a little bit old school to just watch old women getting so drunk that they're falling on their faces on tables. Like, I'm not here to judge. Fucking you do you. But I mean, it's a bit awkward to watch.
Well, it just gets tedious, right? Like, it's another episode of people getting hammered and not making sense. Like, I don't know. I definitely appreciated the episodes where there was kind of more interesting content than just drunk ladies gone wild.
Ending up flat on her face.
I mean, honestly, I far more watch Sonia flirt with young, inappropriate dudes than be that hammered that she falls. Because that woman has game and, like, no fucking shame. And she just does her. And I think it's fucking brilliant.
Sonia has this innate, wonderful charm that you can't help but really fall for. Because, again, a little bit like Leah, there's something very honest about her. She knows she's a little bit fucking off the wall and a little bit batshit crazy, but she owns it, and it's all wrapped up in this kind of bow of love. And I have a lot of time for Sonia for that. But, yeah, I mean, Dorinda is struggling. Ramona, I can't even.
No.
But thank God for Leah, I think, is what we're saying about this season.
100%. I think she's going to be the glue. I think she's the breath of fresh air that New York needs. And hopefully she'll bring along some of her mates as well, because that would be far more enjoyable to watch. I did like Luann kind of owning her ignorance of the prison system once being called out during this reunion, because that was something that really rankled me and rubbed me the wrong way during this season.
We weren't happy about that episode at all. It felt really uncomfortable. But like you say, she has done what we are all trying to do. I feel like she educated herself. I feel like she's, learned. And I don't have a problem with people who make mistakes at all. I have a problem with people who don't choose to fix them or choose to learn so that they can do better next time. And I think Luann is doing that. But you're right. I was really impressed with her recognition that she didn't really get that completely right.
Yeah. So let's get on to Tinsley, because obviously she left halfway, but she's come back for the reunion. She and Scott are engaged and happy.
Now, I think, apart from Dorinda, everybody is completely okay with the fact that Tinsley left to find love. We could all see that really the only thing in the world that Tinsley wanted was to find a man who she could settle down with and have babies. And it is absolutely no surprise to me that she chose to forego her place on the show to do that with Scott.
Yeah, and I think it's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. Like, it is a no-brainer. And yet, it seems to be the ultimate betrayal to Dorinda.
Oh, I mean, I think Tinsley calls it outright, where this was never shown last season, but apparently Scott loaned John quite a bit of money. And it wasn't shown last season, but Dorinda found out about it last season. And ever since that point, Dorinda has had a fucking hard-on for Tinsley, like you read about.
I think this all comes down to jealousy. And I think Dorinda felt perhaps, I'm going to use the word emasculated, even though it's not the right word here. But what I mean is she felt stripped of her kind of power because it was Tinsley who came to John's rescue, or Tinsley's boyfriend, Scott, who came to John's rescue. And she didn't know about it. And I think that really humiliated her. And I think she was annoyed that this young little startup had been able to get her partner out of some kind of hot mess and she didn't even know anything about it. And I think it was humiliation, and I think Tinsley's right. I don't understand why it has continued so vociferously throughout. I don't know why it's developed to this level of hatred where on the final season and Liam mentions the word Tinsley, Dorinda loses her shit. Like, that is crazy to me.
Well, and it's not even Tinsley's problem. Like, I assume John went to Scott and asked him for the money.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with Tinsley. And Dorinda just didn't give a shit. Like, I almost feel like Dorinda felt that Tinsley had something on her, and that's what fucking bothered her. Even though Tinsley never said anything about it, didn't address it, seemingly paid no mind to it, Dorinda was bothered that somebody had something on her through John.
And the whole time Dorinda is going on about how it's like, it was almost like she left them to hold the show together, and she defied her contract and, you know, all of this stuff. And it's like, Andy's like, well, it's not like she just abandoned us. Like, we all agreed it was the best thing to do. And we had a discussion about it. She didn't do anything out of, you know.
She didn't break a contract.
She didn't break a contract. Exactly. No. And I think you're absolutely right. None of the arguments that Dorinda makes sense about this, none of the ones that Dorinda gives make sense. And I think it can only come down to that she felt humiliated because Tinsley had something on her. And it's just so mental to me that this would turn into that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, it goes to a crazy level where I don't feel it ever really needed to go.
Well, and Dorinda was a bully. I mean, she was despicable to Tinsley. And you heard Andy call her out on it a few times. And he was like, you were horrible to her. And that's the point at which I'm like, really? Like, when we see her laughing about the turkey baster comment, all of that stuff, it's just so ugly to watch.
Yeah, no, it's very off-putting, and it's just not, it's not the right tone. Like, it's just not a good look. And I mean, I know towards the end, like, Dorinda admits she was way too overwhelmed and she probably should have not done this season, but she did. And, you know, now that we've, you know, we see that.
It's too little, too late, because I know that she sort of half-assed apologizes to Tinsley, and Tinsley's like, listen,
it doesn't matter.
Too much. Yeah, it's done. But I feel like it would have been a great time for Dorinda to admit that she was vulnerable, to admit that she was overwhelmed, to admit that she was in pain when Tinsley was on the stage, because Tinsley was the one that really bore the brunt of it all. And as awful as Dorinda was to everybody else throughout the second half of the season, it wasn't a patch on how fucking awful she was to Tinsley.
Not at all.
So I think that Dorinda has a lot of work to do there in terms of making that right. But of course, she's not back next season. She's announced that she is gone. So no more Dorinda. And I think that's probably the right thing for her. If she was struggling that much, then she needs to look after herself.
You know, honestly, Dorinda has always been kind of one of the people that I like. I will miss her. I won't miss this season her. I'll miss like last season her, if that makes sense. I would like to see her. Maybe she'll come back and be better than ever. That would be great. But I think she, you know, she's just got a lot of feelings and she needs to work.
And I think that's why we can forgive her, because we know it's not really her. We've seen a much nicer, much kinder, much more tolerant Dorinda, and it was clear that she was going through some shit. And I'm glad that she admitted it, but I think it is time for her to maybe take a step back and just look after herself. And like you say, if she can come back, the old Dorinda, then I'm here for her, for sure.
Me too. And again, it just makes me like dislike Ramona even more, because Dorinda kind of revealed that Ramona like never called her outside the show, and you know, like they supposedly had this great friendship for, you know, 20 years, and it's just all bullshit.
I mean, everything that Ramona is bullshit. But they are rapidly losing Housewives. I mean, we're already down to 5. So it says Leah, Dorinda, Ramona, and Luann and Sonia.
Yeah.
Down to 5. So now we're down to 4 without Dorinda. They're going to have to find some new talent. And I'm excited to see, because I do feel like Leah has shown producers that this is a great direction to go in. I'd love to see some younger blood in there.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, even I would not be opposed to having Bethany back. I'd love to see a Bethany-Leah dynamic on the show. I don't think it'll happen. She was on Watch What Happens Live a couple nights ago, and think she kind of just like poo-pooed the whole thing. Like she's in this great relationship and doesn't really want to do the show anymore. Totally understand. But I'd like to see that kind of level of women, you know, like the young business women of New York, because they're fucking there.
But they're all over the place. The fact that we are still looking, that are still fucking wheeling out relics like Ramona Singer is baffling to me. But I think if Ramona does stay next year, I think the only reason will be because they are so down on Housewives that they need to sort of maintain a solid base of OGs.
Yeah.
And then I think she'll go. But I'm with you. I always loved Bethany Frankel, always will. And I don't think she'll come back, but I think that would be a great dynamic to watch.
Yeah. No, it'd be amazing. While I'm on my Ramona rant, shall we talk about how she decided to steal somebody's mental health story and put it on blast?
I mean, fuck me, this woman. I mean, it's like Captain Sandy over on Below Deck.
Yeah.
Shouting Malia. I mean, not that Malia is gay, but Captain Sandy has made some joke about it for another podcast episode. But yeah, I mean, who the fuck does she think she is?
Ugh. And like, I call bullshit on Ramona consistently being like, well, I was just concerned. It's like, no, bitch, you did want to start some shit on the show. You've been around long enough. You know how this all works. If you were really concerned, you would have just picked up the phone and called her, not fucking made it a storyline for the show.
100%. And Leah says as much. She's like, listen, even if you'd have come to me privately, I would have been like, this is a bit weird, but I would have had the conversation. For you to do the way that she did it, and I said at the beginning, this is when we saw Leah get rattled, because it affected her daughter's life, and you could just see the mama tiger in her come out and go for it, because it put her in a position with her daughter where she was forced to have a conversation that she wasn't necessarily ready to have, and that she had 100% the right to decide when to have it. But Ramona forced her hand. And I agree. I think it's really disrespectful to muck about with anybody's mental health.
Well, yeah, and also cast assumptions that like somebody's mental health looks like this person's mental health looks like this person's mental health, and it's just so ignorant and wrong, and Ramona in a nutshell, right?
Right, and Ramona's like, but you wrote it in an article and it was out there anyway. It's like, it's not the same thing. Like,
so my story.
You write it in a blog. You write it in a blog, but it's not if I want it on television, I can bring it up and put it on television. That is not your job, Ramona.
No.
But again, it's all about Ramona, and Ramona doesn't care about anybody else. And, I felt for Leah with that, but I still think she handled it like a fucking queen.
Yeah, she's amazing. I mean, she's so articulate and thoughtful in the way that she puts these arguments out there that Ramona just isn't, that it was just really obvious. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, it's even like little things like when Andy asks Leah how she felt when Luann dissed her apartment, Leah's like, oh, it's like, I don't take that shit personally. And it's
like, I've got a new apartment anyways.
But yeah, but also this is the point at which you start to warm to somebody, because you start to realize the things that really matter to them. And if everybody gets fucking ragey about the smallest thing, I just don't have the energy or the time to deal with that. But with Leah, she's like, yeah, that's worth getting mad about. That's not worth getting mad about. And I feel like that's a more balanced place for us to be. And it makes her far less anxiety-inducing to watch than somebody like Dorinda, who that's just too much.
It's way too much. It just takes too much energy to try to keep up and decompress. Like, that's why we watch these shows, right?
Literally the only reason why we watch them. But what was your feeling about this reunion in general, Reagan?
I think it could have only been 2 episodes. I think they added a lot of fluff. I didn't need to see a montage of Sonia saying catch a dick, or Luann making sure everybody was where they needed to be, or Leah sniffing things. Like, while funny, it just, I don't know. I felt like maybe there were like 2 issues to really tackle. Like, maybe it could have just been 1 episode. I don't understand drawing it out into 3, because I mean, like, my notes essentially end after the mental health chat. Like, I don't really care about Ramona and Elise. There are a lot of things that they talked about that just didn't, I feel, really impact the season at all. So I don't know.
No, I'm with you, and I guess that's kind of why I asked you, because I agree. I think 2 episodes would have been more than enough. I'm really glad they brought Tinsley back, because fuck me, what would they have had to talk about if Tinsley hadn't come back?
Then it would have been like a 30-minute watch what happens live at home.
Easily. But we'll see. I mean, there's definitely going to be announcements for new names for Real Housewives of New York, because there's no way they can continue with 4 housewives. So we'll have to wait and see when that happens.
That's right. It'll give us something to look forward to. I look forward to kind of a fresher cast, and I hope that's what happens.
Me too. And when they are announced, they will, of course, be on our Instagram page, Stats. If you want to make sure you're keeping up with the latest reality TV news, then I would head over to TV My Husband Hates on Instagram and make sure that you're signed up and following us there. And, you know, the usual undignified beg and plea for rates and reviews. I'm going to do that again. So if you could, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, just hop on there. It literally takes no time. You can make up names, you know.
Yeah, do it anonymously.
Yeah.
Whatever you like. I don't care. Do it 3, 4, 5 times.
Yeah, go for it.
Bored, just go write review. That'd be great. So on that note, I think it's probably a good time for us to end it here. But we will be back with the next Minisode whenever it is. And of course, every week we are still putting out our weekly dissection of the best in reality TV. So make sure to see us there.
Absolutely. And hit up our Patreon, because we definitely put together special stuff there. I think the next one we're looking at doing a review of the Paris Hilton documentary on YouTube. So if you haven't watched that, go check it out. We'll do the next Patreon on that. So, but it's not too much.
It's not too much at all. You can definitely forego a coffee to get more of us, for sure.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's us. So with that in mind, we will say goodbye. And remember,
smart people watch reality TV too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Please subscribe, rate, and review TV My Husband Hates wherever you listen to your podcast. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at TV My Husband Hates, and join the Facebook group to keep the conversation going when the podcast ends. If Twitter's your thing, you'll find us at TV Husbands Hate. Theme music and production for TV My Husband Hates is by Jimmy Sims.